Is something allowed to be horrifying and hilarious? I'm out, use a number, and today I get to say, welcome to Night Vale.
We've had some power outages reported throughout Night Vale in the last couple of hours. If you're experiencing one, well then you can't hear me, can you? The Night Vale Municipal Utility Department said that they are still working to determine the cause of the outages, which are roving back and forth across town in a continuous motion like a great pacing beast. Those whose neighborhoods have been hit by the outages reported the shriek of hawks overhead, and that when the lights came back on, they felt that perhaps they were different people, their memories and identities the same as always, but suddenly felt like costumes that didn't fit exactly, as though it all were actually brand new to them, as though they had been switched out with someone who was exactly like them, as though all that was familiar would ever after be strange. Keep some flashlights with spare batteries and a childhood photo album by you tonight, just in case.
Welcome to Night Vale is a horror and comedy podcast that tells a story. A very good story. The basic setup is that Cecil Palmer is the community radio host of the small desert town of Night Vale, where the strange and sometimes horrifying is in some ways commonplace. Most every episode is a broadcast of this radio show. One episode could be entirely silly and weird, another might be genuinely horrifying. Most are some mix of the two, and that literal five-headed dragon that was talked about, that's a recurring character now, and he's running for mayor. Each episode focuses on one, maybe two, major developing story that Cecil reports further on as the episode progresses. Maybe mysterious lights and sounds are coming from a canyon near town, or antiques have escaped from the antiques mall, or a rift in space-time was accidentally opened at the latest PTA meeting. Interspersed throughout these updates are typical community radio reports and sections. Updates on what the quite possibly non-mortal and hive-minded city council is enacting, the traffic updates that often leave on some note of existential dread, as they do, or the children's fun fact science corner. Remember kids, death exists. Stuff like that. Near the end of the episode, Cecil will cut to the weather. This is not a weather report, it's a featured song. After the song finishes, there will have been a small time skip, and usually whatever problem was happening will have been resolved, and Cecil will explain how, and then give a monologue on the deeper meaning to be gleaned from these events. Oftentimes these are silly, but more than a few times they've carried genuine meaning and depth to me. The presentation of Welcome to Night Vale is interesting. We as listeners to the show are treated as part of the Night Vale world. You're talked to as if you were a citizen of Night Vale. Why else would you be listening to this local community radio show? It makes the world building feel very natural. Of course you know that librarians are dangerous creatures to be avoided. It's why no one goes to the library. You surely have a stance on the debate about whether or not mountains exist. And when street cleaning day comes, well, you can never be prepared for the horror of that. Depth naturally builds out of the mentioned side stories. Characters are established and sometimes even voiced later on. Updates will sometimes reference previous major or minor events, and sometimes something you assume to be a one-off joke can later become a major plot point, and story arcs with vast consequences for Night Vale and its citizens, that'd be you included if we're leaning into the lore here, eventually play out. This world strikes me as truly unique. The larger implications of small mentioned details, which odd things are normal and which ones genuinely worry people, paint a very interesting picture for the kind of world that Night Vale is in. The government is authoritarian and draconian, like kidnap and re-educate those that step out of line authoritarian. The sheriff's secret police can hear you, and helicopters sponsored by a vague yet menacing government agency pass overhead. But bureaucracy is still shown to be needlessly complex and ridiculous. That's one kind of terrifying. But you never really know if the next episode will bring an eldritch abomination that wants to join the PTA, or the genuine end of days. Some supernatural occurrences are simply accepted as part of life in Night Vale, and others have reality-rendering consequences. No type of strange happening feels off limits, even fantasy or sci-fi ones. Please join our celebration of the future blood space war. And no matter what's presented, it always comes with some sort of twist that makes it feel different from any other similar story I've ever seen. and it manages to be deeply personal at the same time. Cecil's character shines through his narration of the events, and I came to care about pretty much every established recurring character. Some more than others, of course. But when they're in danger, when Night Vale is in danger, I worry. Side note, Cecil, the main character, winds up in a homosexual relationship, which is great. And that specific aspect of the story has turned me into a blubbering emotional mess multiple times. No matter what's being focused on, or what story is being told, it's always gripping. The writing and performances and just the whole production pull you right into this world. And there's a healthy amount of self-awareness, which is something I always appreciate. They'll make jokes that rely on the fact that you can't actually see the characters, but they'll also lean on that in a serious way when describing something horrifying. Welcome to Night Vale has been going strong since 2012, with new episodes the 1st and 15th of every month, with the occasional month-long hiatus. There's now over 100 episodes, most of which are 20 minutes to half an hour long. Some of them are two-parters, 19A and 19B, for example. Listen to A, then B. It ain't that complicated. You can listen to it pretty much anywhere that you can typically listen to podcasts, and through YouTube. I'll link that in the description. You'll probably have a pretty good idea of what Night Vale is around after 4 episodes, but the point where I went from just liking the show to starting to love it was after the episode 19 two-parter. There are also live shows that they tour around with. All of these eventually go up for sale on the Night Vale Bandcamp, $1 for the older ones and $5 for the newer ones. The $5 ones come with a few bonus tracks with extra alternate character recordings, so it's probably worth it. I definitely think they're all worth picking up, actually. There's typically multiple voiced characters, and they're just a fun time. Some of them take place between specific episodes, others are kind of vague with their placement, but I'll put what I think is a good viewing order in the description. There's also a book out, Welcome to Night Vale, a novel, with another book coming out later this year. It Devours. It's really cool to see Night Vale from another perspective that isn't Cecil's. I couldn't put it down once I started it, and if you wind up liking the main show, I'd recommend picking it up at some point. There's even an audiobook version, narrated by exactly who you'd expect, if you'd prefer that to reading it with your eyes. I'd recommend reading or listening to it after episode 76. And finally, there are bonus donor episodes that I haven't listened to yet. If you support Welcome to Night Vale through their website for at least $5 per month, you get access to 2 exclusive bonus episodes a year. When you start paying for it, you get access to the old ones too. From what I can tell, these are fan service heavy episodes that don't have too much of a bearing on the plot. I want to listen to them, but I don't exactly have a consistent income at the moment, so that's something for later for me. Over the years that I've been listening to Welcome to Night Vale, it's become one of my favorite things. New episode releases are always the highlight of whatever day I wind up listening to them on. It's made me laugh, it's made me cry, it's made me shudder at the things that go bump in the night, and it's even made me think about myself, my life, the world. As cliche as it might sound, it's helped me get through some dark times in my life, and I just love it. And I hope you can enjoy it too. That said, this has been I Don't Use a Number. If you like this video, you can subscribe and maybe share it with your friends. If you're willing and able, please consider supporting me through Patreon. Keep loving what you love, and I'll see you next time with something else. Oh, and one last thing. Good night, Night Vale. Good night.